and welcome to Newegg Now. My name's Trisha Hirschberger, and we are coming to you live from Newegg Studios in Southern California.
I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell. This is Newegg Now. Thursdays at 10 a.m. Pacific time, we go live on the YouTubes, on the Facebooks, and on Newegg.com to talk about hardware, all the hardware you love, and we're going to have some amazing deals to share.
Yeah, so wherever you guys are watching from, you'll want to open up Newegg.com/Newegg Now in your browser as well, because that's where the deals are. Today we're going to have deals on motherboards, RAM, hard drives, laptops, and even TVs.
Yeah, good time. So let's take a minute to talk about these deals.
Okay.
I'm gonna what's the deal with these deals? What's going on?
The deal is that the pricing and promotions that you get as a part of Newegg Now, this show, is over and above the normal savings that you would get on Newegg. So these are special deals only available as a part of this show, and that you need the promo codes on that Newegg Now page to get said deals. And these deals are only going to be available for a limited time while supplies last. So if you see something you like on that page, then don't wait, or else it'll be gone.
I think we've got a few that might not make it to the segments that we're going to be talking about.
We've had that happen on the show before, where we're like, and now we've got this great deal on, wait, what's that? It's already sold out. Okay,
it's so
good,
strange.
Good.
I don't have an earpiece, and yet it's in my head. So before we get started with the hardware and deal side of the show, we want to kick off, look at the month ahead in the world of gaming. There have been a few big releases already. You schooled me pretty good in Dragon Ball FighterZ. There's Monster Hunter World.
Yeah,
which
have you played that at all yet?
I haven't gotten to sit down with it. I really want to spend some time with that. So those are two that have already come out, but things are really going to start heating up in March.
Yes, there's a lot of things I'm looking forward to. I know on March 16th, Kirby Star Allies comes out on Nintendo Switch, which just brings back so much nostalgia for me. It brings back power mixing for the first time since Kirby 64, where you can combine your sword power with a fire power to get a fire sword. And it has 4-player simultaneous co-op.
That's going to be like a big trend, I think, is getting back into really fun co-op. It's almost like I feel like video games have started learning a little from the resurgence in board games. Different like pro co-op, not only just versus and deathmatch style, but like really trying to add gameplay modes that benefit from people working together on different tasks to get to the same endpoint.
Oh, like co-op board games, you mean?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Like Flashpoint, Fire. I was gonna play Fire.
I was gonna take it back to like even some Pandemic and stuff like that. You know, good times where it's like
Arkham, the Arkham series.
And it's like way even more brutal when a team member doesn't get something done right. Like, well, I was going to be in Budapest. Why are you over there? And you get to freak out on it.
But yeah, co-op is big. I have a whole theory on how and why co-op is coming back into the gaming. It's having this big co-op resurgence now. And I think it's because those of us who grew up having co-op games where we played at home before online gaming was a thing, now we're adults and we have money to spend and we're yearning for that. And so I think that we went to single player online because the next generation was like, cool, I don't have to leave my room. And now it's coming back. To that. So now we get the best of both worlds, which is great. And speaking of games you can play online, March 20th, Sea of Thieves comes out on PC and Xbox One. I got a chance to play that at E3 this past year and a couple times in the beta. And if you haven't played it or seen it yet, it's a multiplayer pirate game. You get to run around with your friends and discover treasure and have battles against skeletons. And I saw a mermaid, and it's crazy pants.
Well, and I hope they work in some sirens. No, it's the excitement of like being able to operate different parts of the ship. You know, it's not like I have my own boat and you have a boat, now our boats do battle. I mean, again, it's that really interesting little nuance and like, all right, well, I'll be the navigator. Yeah. Cool, I have one job. Let's see how we screw that up.
And my job will be to go down below deck and get drunk, because you can also do that while the rest of your teammates work. But no, it's got these really cute cartoony style graphics, but really amazing water effects.
Really cool.
It's very, very nice looking. Again, on the co-op wagon, have you seen A Way Out?
I am irrationally excited about A Way Out. So co-op prison game, again, a lot of buzz. We've been seeing a little hints and teases of it. I mean, some awkward launch for how they've been showing off footage from
You know, there was like that one awkward The Game Awards appearance, but it doesn't change the fact that I'm very excited about the game. I want that story-driven co-op experience.
Have you ever done an escape room?
Oh yeah.
So I mean, like, if I could get the video game version of an escape room with like all of the over-the-top scenery, and it's like Prison Break, the TV show meets an escape room, but for my console or my PC. That's like one crack right there.
Well,
like,
Trish crack is instead of Netflix and chill, I want to turn every evening into co-op games and chill. And that can only really happen when local co-op's a thing because I don't have a 2-system setup. So March 27th, Ni no Kuni 2 comes out, Revenant Kingdom.
RPG fans?
Yeah, it's one of the most anticipated RPGs of the year, and hours and hours and hours of deep single-player gameplay. It's basically a Studio Ghibli game.
I was gonna say, like, I'm not the biggest fan of RPGs just as a general rule, but this looks like it's gonna have artwork that I'd want to play through. And play through the first Ni no Kuni if you haven't. It's awesome sauce.
March 27th, I think the biggest thing that everyone's looking forward to coming out of March, Far Cry 5.
Yeah, just giant open world, first-person shooter. Again, I mean, I think setting the bar for tons of vehicle interaction, destructible environments, and just like crazy over-the-top storytelling. It's in Montana this go around.
Yeah, I think so.
It's about like establishing a resistance to militias or like a cult or something like that.
Right. It's funny because this is not my type of game generally, because I'm not very good at it. I'll be perfectly frank. But I enjoy watching streams of this game because other people have the skill where I do not. And if you guys watched last episode, we had Boomer, the dog, just hanging out on set the whole time.
Well, he's up on the side. You'll see him behind our guests later on in the show.
So yeah, Newegg in general is super hyped for Far Cry 5,
Definitely.
and I feel like we're probably going to do an episode near when it launches that's pretty Far Cry 5.
Especially, I want to check out some of like the side thing. Like I always get really interested in a game like, oh, you can hunt and fish and stuff. And you're like, well, I wonder if there's a way for me to play Far Cry 5 and turn it into like the Joe Rogan game.
Probably.
Like, I'm going to go hunt with a bow and then do some push-ups and then, like podcast about it.
Have you played a Stardew Valley? Because I feel like you should go
if
play a little Stardew Valley.
If that's the jam, then I definitely need to check that out. but the game I think I'm most worried about personally.
Worried about, okay.
Is these discussions that we've seen online, the will they or won't they, the sort of sitcom marriage, the romantic tension that might be bled out here is whether or not we'll see Diablo 3 come to the Switch.
Oh, well, okay, so for those of you who didn't see the ominous tweet, if you will, Blizzard tweeted out a Diablo Nightlight switching on and off, so everyone was like, oh my god, Diablo's coming to Switch! And then Blizzard was like, it's definitely not. I believe the exact quote we have here is, as of now, we do not have any current plans to announce Diablo for Switch, a spokesperson said. But then Eurogamer was like, we've got sources that say it's definitely in development, but the official announcement's still a few months off. And everyone's picked up this Eurogamer sources article. So it looks like it's going to happen. I feel like Blizzard likes a lot of speculation around this kind of stuff,
totally.
But no, not so much.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why we're getting the mixed messaging here. But I feel pretty good about the fact that Diablo 3 might be coming to Switch.
Yeah, well, so we've been talking about this before. I was hesitant to jump on the Switch bandwagon. This is dangerous for me. So like, not only if we see that Diablo 3, my prediction will be that 2 episodes of Newegg Now after Diablo 3 makes it to the Switch, you will see me like sort of disheveled.
Oh, super tired.
Like not very well groomed. Probably have gained at least 15 pounds. Because Diablo 3 is like trigger focus, can't do anything else.
Oh, it's so good.
Shut everything else off. You're done.
Yeah, I'm running through it right now, both on PC and Xbox. I'm doing co-op on my Xbox and running it through myself on PC. It's a great game. You should play it.
I totally should, but I probably shouldn't, but I totally should. But no matter what your gaming platform of choice is, we've got some really exciting titles coming up. Definitely some things that we want to do some more head-to-head stuff on here for the show, too. So on the lookout for March, especially getting to the end of the March, and then Diablo 3 whenever, if and when. That makes it to the Switch. You've got some really cool stuff to look forward to.
Yeah, and for everybody watching, let us know a game that you're looking forward to the most. I saw in the YouTube comments a lot of Far Cry hype, and that's awesome.
A lot of Far Cry hype.
Either leave a comment on that YouTube or the Facebook video, or tweet at Newegg with the Newegg Now hashtag. Send us any questions, any ideas, and of course your battle station photos, because we love to see those. And yeah, if you send those in, we can maybe show those later on in the show.
Definitely. So for now, I hope you'll stay right there, that you won't go anywhere, because we'll be right back to talk to the Intel team about Optane technology, some super fast storage. You're not going to want to miss it. If you watched the show before, you know that we love chatting cutting edge when it comes to PC hardware, and it doesn't get any more cutting edge than Intel's Optane technology.
Yes, and here to tell us about Optane are Avi and Matthew from Intel. Welcome, guys.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, so just to set the stage for everybody, give us a little background on what you do at Intel.
Sure. So I'm Avi. So I joined Intel 10 years ago. I'm back in Southern California. Went to school at USC, fight on. And you know, been with the Intel storage team for the past 10 years. Have had my stint in design engineering, design validation, and now I do product line manager for all the Intel client Optane products.
Excellent.
Cool. Matthew?
Yes, I'm Matthew, currently a marketing engineer with Intel. I've been working on the Optane technologies for about 2.5 years now. My past lives have involved being in the Air Force as a cryptological linguist and doing computer sales.
Awesome.
Oh, right on. And so, I mean, you were saying you've been with Optane for a couple of years. How did you guys kind of find your way into this segment at Intel, focusing on the Optane tech?
So within Intel, we have a storage group called NVM Solutions Group, where we make NAND SSDs, as well as the recently launched 760. I believe it's available on your websites as well. And we have another group within the organization which concentrates on new memory technologies. So we've always made NAND and NAND components and NAND SSDs, but in parallel we've always looked for pushing the envelope on memory technologies, and that's how Optane is not a year program or a 2-year program. It's been
something in development for a little while.
It's been in development for years, and last April is where we first introduced Intel Optane memory, which uses 3D Crosspoint. 3D Crosspoint is just the memory component. Think of it as equivalent to NAND. Optane is our Intel's brand of products, which use 3D Crosspoint in its in the SSD. We have data center products, client products, and within client, Optane memory, Optane SSD, 900p, which was launched late last year, and 800p, which we're launching today.
Oh, fantastic. And so, to expand a little bit, when you're talking about 3D Crosspoint, I think a good chunk of our audience is probably familiar with Optane. But can you expand just a little bit more on what makes Optane different from a technology perspective? We're throwing out words like NAND and 3D Crosspoint, and for someone who might not be familiar with what you're trying to achieve with that, how do you separate the two? What makes Optane special?
And feel free, I know you guys brought some slides, so feel free to refer to those.
Yeah, if you want to jump in on something like that.
Oh, maybe there's one slide here which I'll just use as a reference. But fundamentally, right? If you asked any engineer what's the best memory technology, what everyone is trying to go achieve is, first of all, it to be non-volatile. Meaning when you power off, the data needs to reside, unlike DRAM, which is a volatile technology.
Right.
And secondly, you're trying to go and get the latency, define latency by how quickly can I access anything from the storage media to ensure that the process which is coming from the host is satisfied.
Right.
The latency and non-volatility is what makes 3D Crosspoint different compared to a NAND. And along with that, we have high-end endurance. These memory technology, 3-cross-point is extremely high enduring. You can read and write to it much longer and much more.
Sort of satisfying some of the fears that we had with early SSDs. This read-write cycle. Like, I think there was a lot of nervousness when SSD started making it to consumers. Like, oh, my data is just going to evaporate, or I'm going to exhaust all of my read cycles. And I still have like my old first-gen SSD, which it's probably not doing great, but
the NAND technology basically relies on a concept of trapping electrons. It's containing data, and it's kind of a finite proposition. You can only keep it in place for so long, and especially the earlier technologies, when we're first figuring out how to trap microscopic components of an element. There was obviously a lot of learning and a lot of challenge there, but 3D Crosspoint, the underpinning media here, does not have that same type of
like
functional implementation.
I was going to say degradation concerns or anything like that.
Well, that and it's a little more dynamic. It's less static. We don't necessarily have to go through this system of trapping everything in one and then containing it in a given state. We can change things on a much smaller scale, and we can do it much more dynamically, giving us the improved latency and then also the improved endurance, because we don't have to go through and change the state of it so often, or we can change it where it is. We don't have to move it somewhere else in a change state, the read, modify, write.
Again,
no garbage collection. No,
I was going to say it's a little less of those fears that we had with like trim and getting into
doesn't
sorting like that. Yeah.
Yep.
Now, people talk about Optane making your computer feel faster.
Oh, yeah.
And in terms of system acceleration and responsiveness, how does Optane do that?
Yeah, Trisha, going back to my comment about latency, you know, Optane, because of the 3D cross-point memory media, our SSDs and memory solutions are able to achieve a latency of, you know, much less compared to a NAND. A typical NAND SSD, you're talking about latency in the order of 90 to 100 microseconds, wherein with Optane, you know, we're talking less than 10. And that latency benefit can be realized in multiple areas in a client PC workload. You boot means your boot's faster. You
I've been waiting for tens of microseconds. What's going on? Come on.
Table flip.
Yeah. So all of those, right? So it's everything you do is going to be much responsive, and that's because the Optane is able to deliver the data back to the host at a much quicker rate compared to a NAND solution.
Well, another side to this, and this is going to come up when we talk about the random read performance for the IOPS that we have on these the laptops currently, is it has to do with the scale at which we can retrieve that information.
Okay.
So the fastest memory in the machine is typically DRAM. You can basically fetch. And I'm just using analogies here, but you could fetch like a word at will. You just say, I want this one word. With NAND, it's more like you're fetching, you know, a chapter, and then you need to find that word that you wanted.
Gotcha.
So you're grabbing a huge amount of data, because that's kind of the size, the minimum resolution at which you can retrieve it. And with Optane, we're closer to something like a sentence. So it's not quite as fast as the DRAM is yet, but it's far tighter than NAND is. So when you're going through all of these application launches, when you're loading your enemies in a game level, what have you, those are all little pieces of information. So with NAND, when you have to go through and grab a giant chunk of information to pull out the little bit,
it's a little more wasteful.
It's a lot less efficient. So a lot of that delay is basically it trying to filter through much larger amount of information to pick out what you actually wanted.
Well, and so getting into some of those applications, obviously Intel has numerous markets in mind for different styles of Optane. What are some of the target markets, and what products kind of line up with, like, you know, Optane for consumers versus Optane for businesses? Where does Intel see the sort of the fit for some of this technology?
Sure. So we have 3 products with the introduction of 800p, which will be available for all the customers and consumers to buy. One is Optane memory. So think of Optane memory as traditional hard drives are slow. You take Optane memory as an accelerator, put it in front, and you still keep your hard drive capacity, and along with our Intel software, which is the Intel RST, which does the acceleration for you. It moves all your critical files over to the Optane, and thus giving the end user responsiveness of an Optane.
Nice.
But lets them also keep the density, like your 1 terabyte or 2 terabytes of your hard drive. That's caching. We don't like to call it caching because we do a lot. The reason is we do a lot more.
Can you turn it into a verb? Can you say we're obtaining? Is that?
I'm sure my PR and legal guys are watching.
Don't put a lot of pressure behind it. It's not the best.
No,
idea.
but the reason I say it's not caching is traditional caching, just as block, LBA kind of caching, wherein with Optane, our software also does something like file. So it's more file aware from a system standpoint. It tracks your behavior, and so if you opened a Photoshop application or a Chrome browser, it knows that there is a recency effect to it. So meaning it knows that you're opening these applications on a pretty regular basis. So as a result, it's important for you. So let me move over to the
Intel
Optane.
software is really looking at the consumer behavior.
Yes.
Yeah, so the whole reason we put off the caching is just because it's too generalized. There's a million different ways you could implement something and then call it caching, and we don't want to fall into this the broadest and simplest category of caching, because what we do is so much more advanced than that.
Right.
As Avi was saying, for example, it may be looking at the recency with which files were accessed, but it may also be looking at predictively, like if these files were being used, then these files may also be used, or looking at a lot of different potential use cases, but also, it's just far more complicated.
You're getting better. It's like, it's just better.
It's just better. So say I want to make that better Optane upgrade. What would I need to have in my PC from a hardware compatibility standpoint to make that upgrade?
Yeah, I'm sure, because we like to talk about system building holistically. I'm sure just throwing Optane into my old Franken build, probably I wouldn't be maximizing the benefit of what you guys are trying to bring to the table.
As long as it was at least a 7th gen desktop, like the Z270s.
It's okay.
No.
It's okay, bud.
I mean,
So for Intel
you
Optane,
can just twist the knife.
for Intel Optane memory, just look for the badge which says Intel Optane memory ready.
Okay.
So we have more than 350 motherboards where we worked closely with all our OEMs to make sure the system is ready for Optane memory. It's a M.2 socket, and on the box, if it says Intel Optane memory ready, which is starting 7th gen, and now all the 8th gen boards are supporting.
Great.
It's just plug and play. And for 800p, no such requirements. It's any board which supports PCIe. So what we have here with the 800p is it's an M.2, pretty standard form factor. And we wanted to, that's again, one of the reasons with Optane is we wanted to make sure the enablement was easy. So we brought it in form factors which were consumable and didn't require wholesale board changes. This product is plug and play. Any PCIe supported platform will,
PCIe, NVMe.
Nice.
Yep.
Awesome.
And so especially because you guys are trying to change some of this discussion on, I mean, like, the hoops we have to jump to sort of define caching and why this isn't caching. How are we taking a look at the performance metrics? How does this change benchmarking for a storage solution? Like, what numbers become relevant when someone's trying to say, like, is this an upgrade that makes sense for me?
Yeah, if you ask Intel, random is what matters. Random IOPS is what defines performance from a storage standpoint. Traditionally storage was divvied up into sequential read, sequential write, random read, random write, because the metric was all the storage technologies at that point were not able to provide one one metric, like bandwidth. You know, I'm going to give you X, whether you do sequential or random or read or write, it's going to perform the same. But NAND, hard drives, all had varying performance. That's why those 4 numbers made sense.
Holistically, it starts with the HDDs, the spindle drives. The only impressive performance metric on a spinning, rotating platter was a sequential read, because fundamentally the mechanics basically. Needle can only be in one place.
At one time,
the rotor can only be in one. So you had to be in that track, or the performance just wasn't worth looking at. And then we started releasing NAND SSDs, and suddenly this awareness began to grow. Why is this so much faster? Because we had 10K platter drives that could achieve similar looking sequential speeds. You know. The old Western Digital Raptors, what have you, could do over 200
I remember those. I remember rating those,
With the old SATA 2 SSDs, it's about the same area, and yet the SATA SSD was so clearly faster and superior to that solution. So the awareness began to grow, well, okay, not all the information on the computer lines up in these tracks nice and neat. Sometimes we just need a little bit from over here and a little bit from over here, and we start to call that, random. You're looking for these tiny bits of information that are actually spread across the device, not linearly accessed. And storage technology since then, it became increasingly obvious that that's actually represents more of the pain points for a lot of applications. They're getting stuck because they're waiting for the device to switch between these different address locations. So going back to what I said earlier about the word sentence chapter kind of thing, we can read that sentence, look to the next sentence, look to the next sentence. We can pull out all these little pieces of information very quickly, whereas in the NAND devices, they have to read that whole chapter, pull out a sentence, read the whole chapter, pull out a sentence, and that additional kind of processing is well, the lack of that additional processing is what gives us our advantage.
And just to add to that, right, all the NAND SSDs and all storage technologies today tend to quote their data sheet or any performance numbers at a queue depth. They say, okay, queue depth is basically the number of outstanding IOs which the host is waiting on for to process. And all NAND SSDs typically quoted at queue depth 32. 32, which is, I'll explain why it's more important.
So the queue depth is basically an outstanding list of requests from the host. And this goes back to HDDs. The idea was this platter, this needle, they're moving around all the time. How about we give you an address list, and if you happen to be passing any of these addresses along the way, it'll be more efficient if you stop and read them in that journey. So it was originally created as a way to try and get a little more performance out of these HDDs by making their read paths more efficient and write paths. But not much software, particularly in the client space, was ever adapted to take advantage of this. They continued to rely on the concept of, no, I want this right now. And I'm not providing 32 things and, kind of give me what you can when you can. I want this in the order that I'm requesting it. One piece at a time.
And especially from a multitasking perspective, the developers are saying, like, well, no, my app takes priority, not someone else's. But I mean, to kind of go along with what you were saying there, I think we can finally reference the 2 systems that you brought, these beautiful Aorus laptops here. What can you tell us about the performance numbers that we're seeing on the screens here between the 2, and how does that relate to what you were talking about with like queue depth and?
So what we have here is one with 800p, which is the one system on your right, and the one with a competitive Gen 3x4 NAND. And we're just running iometer, right? A simple iometer run where we're measuring random performance at queue depth 1. And the reason queue depth 1 is important is we at Intel, we have a storage technology division which does a lot of research on what kind of usage and how people use their PCs and how storage is accessed. So we have data which says, pick any application, pick any benchmark. What we see is you need performance, high performance at low queue depth. and a storage device which is able to get that will benefit and give that responsiveness to the end user. It can go, the QDEP definition, it can go from benchmarks to applications to workloads. We in fact voluntarily asked permission to around 50 Intel employees. We traced their usage for over a span of 10 days, and that's the chart I'm kind of showing on the screen here. And what you see here is any kind of usage, you need these low QDEPs. All of these accesses are happening at QDEP 1, 2, and 3, or 4 a little bit, and that's where you need that performance. And Optane just gets to that high performance starting at QDEP 1. NAND tends to need higher QDEPs to kind of get to that performance. But what I'm also saying is that that's never realizable, because QDEP 32 is never realizable in a client solution scenario. It's important for data center where they have a lot of logging and.
But a lot of this seems to be built on the immediacy of the request being fulfilled as quickly as possible.
What you were saying earlier about multitasking is basically you might have 4 applications asking for things at the same time, but they're all asking for one thing.
Right.
So that by definition becomes random because the data they're requesting is not related to the other data which is being requested. So again, that plays to why even though that stacks to potentially a queue depth of 4, none of those 4 are ever related. So all of these outdated metrics that focused on the biggest number you could extract from an HDD, which was just reading things in a straight line, they are outdated. They're archaic, so to speak. They don't represent anything that most of these applications are in fact doing.
What they're going to benefit from.
And what we're doing to change this is all our Optane SSDs and memory solutions will be quoting numbers at these low QDEPs. Quoting their numbers at QDEP 1, QDEP 2, QDEP 3.
So not apples to apples. A lot of competitors may be using QD32.
Got it.
Well, and have you found in the conversation that people are starting to adjust for this type of usage or this type of modeling in describing, like, not just like businesses and corporations, people that are running IT, but even just in like the tech commentary space, people who review products are getting hip to.
It's absolutely catching on. You can see it deliberately cited in a lot of recent articles for reviewing these storage technologies. Maybe it's getting a little boring because the sequentials kind of stay the same and they don't really go anywhere, and they finally started to notice, okay, but we do notice in these workloads there is some difference.
There's
something must be accounting for that. So they're increasingly paying attention to this concept of the random performance at low Q depth.
Yep. And the other one which not just the random, the other thing which we're also very proud of with 800p is the consistency. Let's take an example of, I bought a brand new PC, everything works fast, everything's fun, right?
I love that.
But fresh out of the box, right? Actually, I use that term all the time inside Intel. Fresh out of the box, everything's amazing, everything's running fine, all my benchmarks are scoring high, but I'm going to install an OS, I'm going to migrate all my data, I'm going to fill up my drive, and I'm going to start using it. And that's what we call steady state. That's where
ultimately you will achieve a steady state when it creates fragmentation. So it's similar to the HDDs. You remember you had to defrag all the time. It took hours. That was basically the HDD trying to identify as much as possible the operating system, trying to identify as much as possible. These files may be written together or read together. I should try and locate them in the same lane so that that can be accomplished more quickly. The problem with flash memory devices is that there is not a physical association. It's not like address 0 to 1000 and everything's lined up in order. The location of various pieces of information within that device is completely invisible to the operating system. It doesn't know. So it can't rearrange things to make them more efficient. What happens is, again, going back to the word page and word sentence chapter problem is when it's writing these little pieces of data, when the user just wants to write down a sentence, they all start to accumulate sort of in a random order as the SSD is creating these new chapters. And then when you go back to read them, you may want 2 related sentences that end up being in completely different chapters. And over time, that increases because the device doesn't really understand which piece of information is related to another piece of information. That all exists at the operating system or the host level. So the performance continually decreases over time as you add more and more information, and it becomes less and less contiguous.
Yep. And that's where, and with compared to Optane, you just have one straight line, right? Whether you use it on day one or the last day of the warranty period, whether you fill it 0 or fill it 100%, we have a consistent performance across usage, and that comes with you know, the Optane technology.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for demystifying Optane a little bit for us. Definitely. And now that everyone at home knows a little bit more about Optane, let's take a look at some of the specific Optane products that we have on that Newegg Now page today. Starting with the 800p Optane SSD, we have 2 different models available, 58 and 118 gigabytes, which seem like unorthodox sizes. So what are these products intended for, and what's the reasoning behind those specific sizes?
Yep. So 58 and 118, you know, as I said earlier, this is a brand new memory technology, and though it has 64 GB of, you know, the 58 has 64 GB of raw 3D crosspoint in it, and 118 has the raw 128 raw. Unlike NAND, Optane 3D crosspoint doesn't have spares. So when you do the raw from, you know, from a conversion from raw media density to a logical density which is needed, the spare does give a benefit to the NAND technology, which that's why you're able to achieve those 128 and 256, which are, you know, prevalent. With Optane, as with any SSD, there is a standard called IDEMA. It's a, you know, industry-wide standard which all SSD vendors have to meet. That's the amount of LBA capacity which is available to the end user. So hence, you know, we start off at 64 raw, but we use some for our own memory management and firmware management, and the available density available for the end user is 58. So hence the 58 and 118 GB.
Very cool.
Good to know. Okay, so also on the Newegg Now page, we have the 900p Optane SSD, which we've actually featured on the show before. And when you buy that product today through Newegg Now, you can get a $30 Newegg gift card in addition. And so, what should people know, like the difference between the 800p and the 900p? What those 2 product lines? How do they differentiate?
900p is our fastest SSD. Period.
900p is the best. Do it.
Right, hands down. The, you know, 900p comes in an add-in card and a U.2 form factor, you know, and it's high density, namely 280 GB and 480 GB. The 800p comes in a, you know, M.2, thus giving our customers and end user versatility to put it in mobile as well as desktop. You know, if
smaller form factors.
Gotcha.
If you're buying in and you're trying to figure out whether you're buying an 800 or a 900, go for 900.
Let's do it. Just do it.
Go buy the fastest one. And the 800p, we see at usage as someone who already has you know, storage and looking for an upgrade. You could think of putting your OS, your system, on the boot drive. And your data drive could be your existing solutions.
But 900p, that's the system builder magic right there.
That's for desktops. Unfortunately, you know, for mobile, 900p doesn't have a form factor which fits into mobile. So hence, the 800p comes in the middle.
Right on.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Avi and Matthew. You out there watching, make sure you check out the Optane products on newegg.com/NeweggNow. Coming up, we're going to take a nice long look at more PC upgrades.
Woohoo.
Some really cool tech. Check it out.
Welcome back to Newegg Now. Let's talk a little bit about PC upgrades.
Yeah.
So when you decide to upgrade your system, it's important to consider what exactly you're upgrading for. Are you upgrading for streaming, for gaming, for professional applications like 3D modeling or rendering?
And so depending on what you're looking to do, you're going to need to upgrade differently. So I want to start with streaming. we both stream quite a bit, but you definitely have more experience in not only like supporting audiences and the software and everything that goes into it, but then also like you've gone through a couple PCs to get to the streaming rig that you're working
yes,
on
I
right
have.
now.
Yeah, I feel like you do, correct me if I'm wrong, but more mobile streaming lately,
Oh, yeah,
which is fascinating, and we should do another episode on at
I do,
another
like,
point in
vlogging.
time.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah, what your rig is for that. But for me, I do more traditional video game streams.
Right.
And for that, you know, there's a lot that goes into it. And a lot of times I get asked by people, hey, I want to get into streaming. Is my PC okay? What should I upgrade in it? And there's so much to consider in this conversation.
Yeah.
But the TLDR version is you can get started with streaming for a lot less of a beefy system than you think you need. You can get a pretty decent budget streaming rig for around $550
wow.
for a desktop. Yeah, it's pretty accessible. And I feel like what it really comes down to is, do you want a 1 PC versus 2 PC setup?
Okay,
and what types of games do you plan on streaming? So if you're doing a 2 PC setup, or you're streaming from a PC but playing your game on console, then that enables you to really use something like a budget streaming PC. And for something like that, you want to put all your eggs in that CPU basket, put all your money and budget right there. For a streaming, just specifically streaming PC, if you're running your game off something else, you don't need to pour a lot of money into a graphics card,
right,
for example, because that's not running your game. You just want your system able to encode, to run a bunch of different software applications at the same time. That is what that is for. And if you're going to have a 2 PC setup, or a PC that's for streaming and run off of a console, then you need to consider hardware like a graphics card or something else to port that over. But that's where I believe it becomes much more accessible. Now, if you are doing a 1 PC setup where you plan on streaming and gaming off of the same PC, which is what I did for a long time,
right,
because I just didn't have 2 PCs to go off of.
You know, just multiple systems.
Yeah, a 1 PC setup can still be attainable for a decent budget if you're streaming indie games, say, that aren't very system intensive.
Aren't as taxing, yeah.
Right, so I mean, if you want to stream The Witcher 3 all the time, then that's going to be more expensive because you're going to need that GPU. But say you're streaming, I don't know, Limbo or Stardew Valley.
You were doing you single-handedly sold me on Cuphead. Like from
Cuphead,
doing your Cuphead streams, and like that didn't seem to me like it was an overly taxing game to have up and running on a single system.
No, it's definitely not. So stuff like that is very attainable with a 1 PC setup. Also, then, that needs to come into that conversation is what quality do you want to stream at? What are your settings, and how you can mess with that to cater to the system that you have. So again, TLDR, it's not all about having a super beefy system to produce a quality stream. You just kind of have to balance everything. And then when you're streaming too, the reason that I say you want to focus more on your processor, on your RAM, is because when you're streaming, that streaming PC, the one that's dedicated to that, you want to think about running your broadcasting software and what those options are. If you're using OBS, if you're using XSplit, whatever you may be using. I have used both and highly recommend them both. And you can really finagle with your settings a lot in both of those softwares. Also, do you want fun follower notifications, or do you want music players that your viewers can constantly tack on their favorite song to a playlist? Do you want bots running in your chat? Do you want to do giveaway streams? All of those things, at least for me, are separate things that are open on my PC at the same time. So they all need to be running at the same time, which again means I want more processor speed, I want RAM. Yeah, exactly. That's what I need for that. So that's where I would focus your energy for that. And there's definitely a lot of overlap for streaming PCs and gaming PCs. Obviously, as most people stream games, and especially if you're doing it off one unit like I started out doing. But if you want to upgrade your gaming PC, then make sure you have the right GPU. That's super important. But, you know, there's more to it than just that. You have to look at the system holistically. Oh,
definitely. I mean, it's always the joke. You're like, I just dumped a V12 engine into a Honda Civic. It's going to go real fast.
Oh.
You're like, it's more complicated
That's
than
not how
that.
that works.
And so one of the things that we should get into, some of the individual components, we can talk
Let's
about
do it.
RAM. So RAM it's fairly easy to upgrade on desktops, and it gives a very noticeable performance boost. So we look at like minimum system requirements. Never go by the minimum system requirements.
No,
it's
that
never
makes
a good
me
idea.
so sad when I see people that are like, I just got this great PC for $200 and it's running minimum everything.
Hey. So Windows 10 only requires 2 gigabytes of RAM, and many systems will come with even 4. But at 4 gigabytes of RAM, you likely don't have enough memory to have an optimal experience. Even most software, let alone gaming. And what's often happening is having too little RAM is going to tax your storage solutions because you have to set up this swap file. So you create this sort of artificial RAM buffer, which doesn't work nearly as fast as having actual RAM. And so in a consumer grade system, maybe a little like gaming, 8 gigabytes is probably a safe place to play in. But once you start getting into some of these other applications, gaming, video editing, content creation.
Shoot for 16 if you can.
Absolutely. You just take that step up, and I think you're in for a much nicer experience when you get there. So some more extreme uses can definitely benefit from 32 and 64.
Oh, yes.
I'm running 64 gigabytes of RAM in my video editing workstation.
Nice.
But not necessarily because a whole bucket of 64 gigs of RAM helps. It's those little things like a little mini video preview. That's going to eat up some RAM right there. I use a RAM drive where I actually dedicate, when my system is on, I have about 2 gigabytes of RAM dedicated as a super fast storage solution, which then kind of evaporates whenever I turn my PC off. And it was more about flexibility than just one program needs this much RAM.
Well, a lot of programs can't even make use of that much RAM.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Except for Chrome. Like 128 gigabytes of RAM, and Chrome gets real happy.
Yeah.
So you have to do some research also on your motherboard, because you want to know not only what type of RAM your motherboard might need, but then how much your motherboard can actually support. DDR4 is the mainstream modern RAM of the moment, and most motherboards produced in the last few years should be compatible with that standard. Just kind of throw it in there. Just, if you're on that Newegg.com/Newegg Now page.
Oh, that page. What's going on there?
We have Corsair's Vengeance DDR4. It's very angry RAM. It's vengeful RAM. Great example of high-end RAM. We have that for $30 off right now. So check out the deals page, and you'll see everything we have discounted, because there's a ton of stuff.
Okay, so next up, let's switch gears and talk about the brains of the operation, the processor. Upgrading your system's processor can really increase performance, but CPU upgrades are not exactly cheap, nor are they easy. For example, Intel's new 8th gen CPUs are incredibly powerful, but they also require a motherboard with a Z370 or comparable chipset. Still, a combination like a high-end CPU coupled with an Aorus Gaming 7 motherboard makes for a ferocious high-end system.
That's tasty.
Speaking of, we have that beautiful high-performance board for $40 off, along with a BioStar board for $52 off.
What a fun coincidence. We were just talking about Intel products and Intel CPUs. We have one.
Go figure. And even if you don't want to go that high-end, you can potentially gain a substantial performance boost by overclocking your CPU. However, we have to give the disclaimer, overclocking is complicated and can potentially damage the CPU or other components in your system. Make sure you know what you're doing. That being said, again, with software-based overclocking, it's a lot less dangerous than it used to be.
Yeah, YMMV, but we've covered numerous times on the show where when you're starting to buy into that high-end tier of products, there's an idea that you're going to be pushing the performance limits.
They know what you're doing. They know,
and they've got memory profiles and CPU profiles that kind of help you get that leg up. But when you're doing that, you are taxing your system. So you definitely want to focus on casing and cooling. And I think we're all pretty much agreed, water cooling is the best way to help your CPU stay within sort of the appropriate operable temperatures under the stress of running it hotter under water cooling. So custom-built water cooling solutions, they look nice, they look pretty cool.
I know people love them. I was just talking with Jackie in YouTube chat before we went live today about water cooling specifically. So we know that there's a lot of interest out there about water cooling.
Yeah, they were definitely, I mean, they were recommending in the chat that we do like a full episode on doing like custom loops and stuff. That could be a lot of fun.
I'm down for that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So for those of you who do want to upgrade to a state-of-the-art CPU, you're going to want to pay attention.
Okay.
This is one of the things, like, I'll be curious to see, like, if they're even still available now that we've made it to this point in the show.
We'll see.
I'll just keep rambling because the sales page goes.
No, tell people what it is.
Okay, we'll tell you. So today we have the Intel i7 8700K Coffee Lake 6-core CPU ready to go, $10 discount, along with a $20 gift card you can use at a later time.
Yeah.
Those of you that have been waiting to pull the trigger on an 8th gen CPU, now is the time. And we actually got a tweet from @ShortFlip saying, talk about perfect timing, was just looking to get an 8700K, already bought it before we even made it to this point in the show.
And a Gigabyte Z370 motherboard yesterday. Woo!
Good job,
just
buddy.
$90 overall, thanks
Good
Newegg.
job.
So exciting. Now, one,
Love it.
Does this get your I need to buy it motor going?
Oh, I'm so, okay, so.
Frankenbuild is calling.
Frankenbuild is calling. Two things that kind of keep interrupting this is the amount of downtime that I'll be able to take in rebuilding the PC and making sure everything's up and running. But I have now sort of been pushing the brakes just long enough that I'm kind of curious to see what we might be covering, say like come summer when a lot of new tech announcements start popping out. And then what other, so I might push pause on the Frankenbuild rebuild, just kind of suffer through some of my 4K video rendering times until I can get to maybe some of the new stuff. Because it's also that window too. You get the new announcements and maybe I decide to use last gen tech and get discount, I don't know. So I'm in a holding pattern because I've got the wealth of amazing choices and opportunities and I'm scared to pull the trigger. Push the trigger? That's not a...
Pull the trigger.
Pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Right.
But there's a lot of exciting options, and that's a great place to be in.
Yeah.
Guys, another thing to think about when you're upgrading is airflow and cooling, like we were just discussing. A computer chassis with lots of airflow can also help mitigate heat issues. For example, the Corsair 460X case, that's right back here, has 3 large air intake fans to keep cool air coming into the PC. And because this is Newegg Now, you can pick up that case for a super crazy $70 off. It seems like we have discounts on just about everything you need for a brand new build, and we're not even done yet.
It's real funny. And that Corsair case, I've seen so many amazing builds.
Yes,
using
I love
that case as the base.
I love that case.
Again, it's always exciting to talk about when a company does something right, and that case is so trick. I love it. Because if you also go with a high airflow case, you'll probably want to look at some kind of cooling solution. And the Corsair Hydro Series H110i all-in-one CPU cooler on sale for $18 off. So those of you who want to try overclocking your new CPU, make sure you check that out. Even if you're not looking to overclock your CPU, I use an older gen Corsair all-in-one cooler, and it really helps keep my system running a little quieter. So that's also another concern that you might be looking at too, if you're a little more workstation-y as opposed to a little more battle station-y.
Or if you are streaming or producing content.
Yeah, definitely.
Quiet is key.
Anything you can help your mics out there, it's gonna pay off. Trust me. So we actually had a bit of an overheating issue with the system that we use to broadcast the show.
That's right.
So it was this all-in-one little box. Some proprietary design on how some of those elements were sort of incorporated into the streaming box. But the Newegg Ninjas, like, we were starting to have some issues with the broadcast. Newegg Ninjas gutted it, put it in a much larger case, much better airflow, a couple little tweaks, like they added some more RAM.
You know, like you do.
Like you have to. And running much, much smoother. It definitely helped our production here. Just a couple simple upgrades, focused, again, on a very specific kind of streaming, live broadcast. But that was a huge benefit for our workflow here.
Absolutely. Okay, now let's talk about storage, which is often overlooked. So upgrading your storage can have a substantial impact on performance as well. A SATA solid-state drive is the quickest, easiest, and cheapest way to get more speed out of an older computer. Older computers tend to have disk-based hard drives, like we were talking about earlier in the show today. Disk drives are limited by mechanical factors such as disk revolution speed, whereas SSDs have no mechanical parts. SSDs make use of non-volatile memory cells, which are much, much faster. You can find a low volume but high quality SATA SSD for under $100, which is amazing when you think back just a couple years ago. Loading your operating system onto an SSD will massively increase operating system boot speed, as well as help mitigate the common performance drop that occurs when all of those on-system startup programs try to load at the same time. So you can use your old HDD then as a secondary storage drive after formatting it. And SATA drives will provide a noticeable performance boost, but a non-volatile memory express drive will be an even bigger boost since NVMe uses your motherboard's PCIe lanes. So to go all out on storage speed upgrades, consider Intel's Optane technology, like we talked about earlier in the episode. The 900 series and the 800 series have Optane built in, but there are also standalone modules. The other sometimes overlooked component that we should talk about today is the power. The PSU. As you start upgrading your higher end components like your GPU, and especially if you want to get into custom liquid cooling, you need to make sure your power supply can keep up.
Definitely.
Wattage is the base number to help you distinguish which PSU you need and how it's rated. And simply put, this is the total amount of watts that the PSU can deliver to the different parts of your PC. You'll find models that provide 300 watt and some that go all the way up to 1200 watt. The most efficient PSUs are the ones that come with an 80+ rating, which is assigned by an independent certifier. And even in 80+ PSUs, there are different levels. There's 80+, 80+ bronze, 80+ silver, 80+ gold, 80+ platinum, 80+ titanium.
And we've got some great resources online where you can kind of put out the number of parts and pieces that you want in your build to then see what kind of wattage you want from your power supply.
God bless those sites.
Oh, it's so helpful. Because I mean, I used to just like add it up like, okay, the CPU is like 140 watt CPU. I could like do the math.
No, there's some really good calculators online that are free.
Addition's hard.
Yeah.
So we have a killer PSU deal going on right now. We have the Corsair CXM series 650 watt 80+ bronze PSU for $40 off.
Nice.
So this is an excellent PSU, perfect if you're starting a new build, maybe with all the fancy parts that you also got from this episode today.
Maybe.
And so we've talked a lot about upgrading desktops, but people don't often talk about laptops.
Yeah.
So you can absolutely upgrade a number of laptops out on the market today, though it does require a little bit more effort to get them open.
And bravery, I feel like.
Definitely.
Especially if you have an older laptop, installing an SSD when you had a spinner drive can completely revitalize your system.
Oh yeah, I had a first generation Lenovo Twist. It was one of the first Windows 8 laptops that had that flipping screen. And so it was just running, it had a spinning disk drive in it. It was running terrible, and we were looking at shopping a new PC for Marie, but I had an older SSD, and I thought, you know what, let's just try. Maybe it's not like the CPU and stuff like, let's just give it a shot. It's still running today.
So just that little upgrade completely changed your system.
Totally revolutionized how we were using that.
Very
and it was great because it was one of the first that had like flip screen, tablet mode.
Yeah.
You got the Windows 10 update, and it's running like a perfectly I mean, my wife's not doing a ton of like video editing and gaming and stuff, but for everything she needs to do, this thing's working great.
That's awesome.
And oftentimes you can add RAM too. There are some manufacturers that like to play games with maybe soldering that stuff into the logic board. But if you follow instructions, you look up your brand of laptop online, you can usually find some pretty savvy guides on how you can crack that thing open, get in there. YouTube is your friend. Just make sure you aren't violating a warranty. When we gutted our streaming computer, we were out of the warranty, so there wasn't any danger in upgrading that system.
Or unless, like I said, you've got that bravery and you're like, you know what, I'm going to avoid this warranty because I think I can do it. Whatever your prerogative is. Or if you don't have that bravery, you don't want to open up your laptop, I understand. But you still need more space, say. External storage is often an excellent solution as well. It's also portable, so if you're someone with multiple systems, like I think most of us here at Newegg probably, it's great for transferring large files. You can just plug in your external hard drive via USB or Thunderbolt 3 if you're lucky, and you've just given yourself plenty of space.
And we have a great deal on an external hard drive right now, the Seagate Backup Plus 4 terabyte USB 3 external hard drive, $15 off.
Cool.
4 terabytes should last you a little while, I think.
Absolutely. And speaking of laptops, we've got some great deals to cover there as well. You can pick up the super portable Asus VivoBook S510 15.6 inch for $100 off right now.
And we've also got the MSI GL62 VR0 with an i7 7th gen 7700 HQ CPU and a GTX 1060 GPU. and pick that up for a massive $120 off.
We also have a killer laptop from Asus on sale, the Republic of Gamers Strix GL702VS. This gaming machine has a 17.3-inch G-Sync display, along with a GTX 1070, 8 gigabytes, and 12 gigabytes of RAM. You can get that for $120 off as well.
Definitely, good times.
Yeah, well, that's it for upgrades. So make sure that you check out the Newegg Now deals page so you don't miss anything.
Don't miss anything. People are already taking advantage of that Intel CPU deal. It's good times. You know what we need to cover? Laptop upgrades. And we're talking with one of the other ninjas about it. External GPUs.
Yeah.
We need to do a whole segment on that.
I'm happy to do that.
Because my gaming laptop's a little bit older, but it's got the Thunderbolt.
Yeah, but that still doesn't mean it's going to be on a compatibility list, and that's all stuff we would talk about if we did any GPU episodes.
Just saying, Nick, we could probably throw that in there at some point, 'cause I think that's going to be a big deal coming up. So we have just about everything you need to upgrade your current build, build a whole new one. This stuff's going fast, so you make sure you want to make sure you check it out.
Yeah, and if you need something more than the great deals we have here at Newegg Now to inspire you, we've put together a little highlight reel of some of the best builds that the Newegg team here in the studio has assembled, as well as others that we've gotten up close with at industry shows. So check it out, get inspired, and get upgrading. If you missed last week's episode, you missed a lot of ridiculousness and hilarity.
It was a good time.
We talked about health and safety while gaming, posture and ergonomics, and most importantly of all, Juan and I went head-to-head drawing portraits of one another using a Logitech trackball with only 60 seconds to do so. It was ridiculous. We asked you guys to tell us who you thought did a better job last week, and Juan, let's go ahead and revisit that on your laptop.
Yeah, we can throw it on my screen right here. I still have, this is the system.
Beautiful. That is Juan's portrait of me wearing my Gunner optics,
you were
right?
wearing your Gunners, and I really felt like I captured your likeness, like even down to your smirk.
Oh, it's pretty good. I appreciate that you gave me both the top and bottom lip. That was very generous of you.
I think lips work better in pairs. So 2 of them is the right number.
No, that's great. And this was my beautiful drawing of you. I made you so happy because you're just so happy to talk about tech here at Newegg. I got your blue hat
my blue beard.
Your beard, which I will admit is a little shaggier than I wanted to make it, but
okay.
trackball.
That's okay. I actually needed to trim up that day, so I think you captured that well. So I think it's time to reveal the poll winner.
Oh yeah, we asked you guys. We put a poll online.
Who created the better piece of art? And I don't have the poll.
Do you not have the poll?
It's in response to the tweet that I put in.
Oh no! Hold on. Let me pull it up.
Yep, pull it up, pull it up.
And
I'm gonna lie, I'm not gonna lie. I peeked already at the poll results, so I know what they are.
To the Newegg, we're doing this live, guys. Sorry.
Doing it live. Doing it live. Yeah, go ahead. See if you can get that tweet. There we go.
There we go.
All the way down. Who won this challenge?
Oh, Trish.
So 38% of you said JC won,
have
and
excellent taste.
62% of you said that Trish won. And I will be honest. I feel like I had some more distinctive features to work with that I could use for my.
The audience spoke though, so I appreciate the kindness. But eventually, I will win one of these showdowns.
Well, we're both.
It will be glorious.
We've learned that we are both horrible artists.
Totally. Well, and I needed more tips from Leo. Like he's gaming on trackballs. Like I never. So moving on for future shows. We definitely want more of your content, your fantastic builds, your commentary on tech. And I mean, because you've been sending in some amazing shots that we've been featuring on the show, and that's been awesome to check out, especially some of the themed builds.
The themed builds are awesome. And even if you have like work in progress update shots, that would be great.
Totally. We also want to shift gears a little. We want to expand on this, this viewer commentary. Send in some of your gaming clips.
Oh yeah, if you guys have really fun gaming clips that you would love to share with the interwebs that you'd like us to highlight on Newegg, please send us those. Some of your best, funniest, or most exciting moments captured by our gaming fans out there. So fire up your game capture card or NVIDIA Shadow Play, capture your gaming footage, upload it, and then share it with the world, and tweet us the link at Newegg using that Newegg Now hashtag. We would love to see that.
Yeah, just a little Windows G action, and you should be able to start capturing some of that content too.
You can definitely do that.
I like it. So we want to thank everyone who's been sending stuff in. Keep that content coming. Before we say goodbye, we have a few more big deals on monitors and TVs that we'd like to tell you about. Starting, well, I just have this right over here.
Oh, do you
I just happen to have this.
This is hilarious.
Hold on.
You just happen to have this 27-inch monitor sitting here
totally,
next to you.
like you do. Just off on the side.
Oh,
so we'll just
so
put
nice.
this right here.
Yes.
You can raise your chair up, right? If I like just kind of.
Oh yeah,
this
that's
right
great. No.
there. That's
yeah,
exactly
no, that's
what we want to say.
perfect.
So this is the 27-inch BenQ GL 2760H monitor. You can get it today for just $119.99.
Ooh.
It's about $50 off the normal price.
It's really
good. It has a 1920 by 1080 resolution, 2 millisecond response time, 60 hertz refresh rate, 0 flicker backlight to reduce eye fatigue, and at a fantastic price for today only.
Very nice.
I'm gonna go ahead and take this.
And if you're looking, thank you. If you're looking for something a bit beefier and a bit outside the gaming space, you'll want to make sure to check out the Dell P4317Q. So cool. This is a 43-inch Ultra HD 4K monitor designed for business and professional applications. So it's what's known as a multi-client monitor, which means it can display video feeds from up to 4 different sources, each in 1080p. And this is a feature people like stock traders can take advantage of easily. It has a ton of connectivity options. It's a USB hub, and it has built-in speakers. So you can get this powerhouse professional monitor for a huge discount today through Newegg Now and pick one up for about $450 off the normal price.
Good times. It's ridiculous. I kind of need that. So last but not least, we've got a couple of Samsung TVs. Always huge deals from Newegg Now. They love writing into the script that I did actually buy my last TV through one of the episodes of our show.
You sold yourself.
I sold myself a TV on the show. Good times. So we have a 40-inch 4K smart LED TV from Samsung for more than 35% off MSRP.
You
and
don't say.
A monster 75-inch model that you can get today for close to half off MSRP. I can't believe I'm about to say this. Feeling like Crazy Eddie. The prices are so good, we're not allowed to say them on the air. Oh. So yeah, these are some great Samsung 4K TVs. Head over to newegg.com/NeweggNow right away. Get these deals before they are gone.
Yeah, we've got so many deals today. Make sure that you check them all out on that Newegg Now page before they are gone. So I want to say thank you to everybody who sent us in comments or photos via the chat or via the Newegg Now hashtag. You guys are awesome. Remember to keep those coming throughout the week, and we can feature them in an upcoming show.
Definitely. And we want to thank Avi and Matthew from Intel for joining us today to talk us through Optane. Thanks to you all out there from watching. On behalf of Trisha and I, again, major thank you to the entire team here at Newegg for keeping us up and running and making us look good. This is so much fun to produce every week. And we're just a very small part of the entire team of people that it takes to make a live show look this good. So we're going to be back next week. Talking about some esports.
Talking esports.
Good times. This has been Newegg Now, and now you know.
Bye, guys.